This is Research Like a Pro, Episode 8, Research Logs. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Hello and welcome to Episode 8, Research Logs. Hi, everybody. This is Nicole. Hi, Diana. How are you doing?
I'm good. Glad to be here today. Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to us again.
I thought we'd start off today with some announcements. You may have heard that RootsTech is expanding, so we're really excited about that. Not sure if we'll go all the way to London, but they're going to have a conference in London in October of 2019. Do you think we should go?
I've been thinking about it all morning, but I don't know. Nicole, you and I both did study abroad in London, so that kind of holds a soft spot in our hearts, doesn't it?
Yes, I love that place. It would be really fun to go back, so we'll have to think about it. In other news, a couple of friends of mine have decided to do a Power Hour presentation at RootsTech, so that's exciting. We're doing a presentation called Families Discovering Family History Together, and another one called Preserving Family History in Fun and Modern Ways. And so these two presentations are called Power Hours, and they will be in the morning. I think they're going to be at 8 o'clock during RootsTech. Anyway, the people I'm doing it with are Olivia Jewell and Jana Greenhall, who's also an accredited genealogist. And we're excited to be talking about some of the other things we do with family history with our children and with our families and so forth.
Yeah, I'm excited about Power Hour. I am also doing a Power Hour on accreditation. So for any of our listeners out there who are interested in just learning a little bit more about how to gain a credential, we'll be having a fun Power Hour. I'll be doing that with two other accredited genealogist professionals, my friends Lisa Stokes and Julie Stoddard. So we're excited, Nicole and I, for this new opportunity to share our love for family history. Well, last week, Nicole, was great, wasn't it? We did Byu Education Week. Mm-hmm. And we had a nice core group of people that came back every day to listen to us for 4 days. And it was really fun to just hear how many people just are so interested in learning how to research better. And we basically taught them the Research Like a Pro process from start to finish. It was pretty condensed because we only had 4 days. But I think a lot of people really appreciated the system and the method. So next conference coming up for me is the Professional Management Conference out in Kansas City. I'll be going out there for the APG conference, and I'll be presenting with my colleague on accreditation. So looking forward to meeting some of you who might be also going out to Kansas City.
That will be wonderful. Wish I could go with you. Well, we wanted to share a review that a listener has shared on Stitcher, and also at the same time encourage you that if you like the podcast here and are willing to share a review on iTunes or Stitcher, we really hope you will do that. So it really helps us and it helps other listeners who are wanting to know if it's a podcast they might be interested in. So the review we're going to share today is from Banjo Moon, and this person said, 2 thoughts after listening to episode 3. Number 1, this podcast is rich with information that every beginning genealogist should hear and every seasoned hobbyist should review. And number 2, Diana and Nicole have a natural chat around the kitchen table style that is very enjoyable to hear. 5 stars for a podcast worth listening to. So thank you very much, Banjo Moon, for the kind review. And we hope that many of you will also leave a review. And if you do, we'll read it here on the podcast. All right, let's dive right into today's topic, which is research logs.
Okay, so research logs I have found is something that people either love research logs or they know they should use a research log and they never have. And so they're sort of afraid of research logs. So hopefully today we can dispel some of the myths about research logs and give all of you who are listening a reason to use them and some ideas about how to use them. So let's just start off with the definition about what is a research log. Simply put, it's a record of what you were looking for, where you looked, and what you found. It sounds pretty simple, but I've seen so many different people get really hung up on how to do it, and so they end up not doing anything. So, Nicole, you're going to give us some ideas about why we should use a research log.
Well, a research log helps you know what you've done, so you can track both the positive and the negative searches. You should not exclude any searches where you didn't find anything because you might repeat that search 5 years down the road if you don't have a record of it. So why use a research log? To know what you've done and to not repeat it.
Yeah, I should have been doing this for all the years I researched. The funny thing is that I remember sitting in classes and the teacher saying things like, record your negative searches. Make sure you know where you searched and what you didn't find. But in my head, I just wanted to record the things I found. And so I didn't use a research log completely correctly until I started doing the accreditation process. And I knew I needed to have those negative searches in there. So if you are just beginning your genealogy, take our advice and record negative searches, because then you don't have to wonder if you've searched that database before. You will know you searched it and you didn't find anything. Now, one of the things that's really important and a great reason to use a research log is to put a date down for when you did the search. I don't know about you, Nicole, but we see databases all the time being updated on Family Search. You will get an email saying Family Search has added 100,000 images to a collection or something like that. And sometimes I want to know when I actually searched a database. And in my research log, if I have that I last searched that in 2015, then I will know, oh, I probably should go search it again because maybe that record I need has been added to the database.
Yes, you don't want to miss out on that record that was added later.
Right. And so having the real date that you searched is great. Also, it lets you see when you did your research. Sometimes we think we just barely did some research and then we realize it was 10 years ago that we researched a family, because the years do fly by.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another great reason to use a research log, because it gives you a place to put your source citation so that you can use that source citation in many other places. So I create my source citation right on my research log the first time I look at a source, and then I have it to put into my research report, in my database, to attach it to a document, so many other places it can go, but my source citation lives on that research log.
Yeah, I kind of think of my research log as my workhorse while I'm searching, where I just put everything that I'm finding and all my notes and ideas. It's just kind of like a place where I can really keep track of everything that's happening during the searching phase.
Yeah, it definitely is. And the other thing that I love about a research log is that you can just see really quickly what you have found. Sometimes I just want to think again, okay, what was in the 1820 census? What was in the 1830 census? And as I'm making my connections in my research, it's right there in front of me because I put good comments and results in that column. And so I can quickly see everything I've been finding on this family.
Yes, and we've also talked before about the possibility of just evaluating that evidence and information right in the research log. And I know some people like to do this, and I've done it before too, where you just add columns for the source, information, and evidence, and then you can evaluate that right there and say, this is in original source, this is secondary evidence, and secondary information and direct evidence or whatever. And it allows you to really evaluate everything that you're finding right in the moment instead of waiting until the report writing phase.
Yeah, and exactly it, and especially if you come across something that maybe is a questionable source, you can make a note of it right there and say something like, this source document is derivative. I need to go look for the original. You can give yourself clues about what to do next in your research. So it's just a really good place to keep all of that information. Keeping a research log really will help you be more productive and efficient in your research because you won't be duplicating effort anymore. You will know where you've been, what you found, and you can just do that search one time. So this better record keeping is all about helping us break through brick walls. Sometimes our brick walls are there because we've put them up because we are so scattered and unorganized. We just don't know what we have found and what we have searched. So when we actually get going with better record keeping, keeping a research log, sometimes the answer is right there waiting for us to find it.
I agree. Well, let's talk about the different types of research logs. We usually talk about 4 different ones: the research notebook, the electronic research log, Research Ties, which is an online software program for keeping track, and then a paper research log. So, Diana, tell us more about the research notebook. What is that?
Okay, well, years ago, I heard someone in a class suggest using a research notebook where every day you write down what you did and what you want to do the next day. And I thought that made a lot of sense. Back in the day, I was doing research every morning for an hour before all of my busy children had to get off to school and, the craziness of home life began. So I really relied on my research notebook to tell me exactly what I had done. And like I say, this was right at the beginning before I was actively using research logs. So my research notebook was a simple solution for me, and it might be for any of you who are listening also. I use a research notebook for working on the collaborative family search family tree and my ancestry tree. The reason being is that sometimes all I'm doing is attaching hints or standardizing things on the family search family tree, and I don't need to have a full research log entry for that. I just can put it in my research notebook, and I can make myself a little note. I'm working on my 3rd great grandmother, and I need to do this step next. I just do simple things using my research notebook. And if I'm doing that in the family search family tree, a lot of times I'll just jot down the ID number and make sure I've got the complete name of the individual that I want to maybe explore in the future. Because as we all know, sometimes on the family search family tree, because it's collaborative, people will get merged and the ID numbers can change. And so I like to just keep a careful note of, who it is I'm looking for and what I want to do. The thing that's really nice about when you're doing that kind of work is that your source citations are automatically created when you attach those hints or records. And so I kind of like to think of this kind of research as just the kind that we do when we don't need to have a lot of thought. We're just attaching things, we're making sure things match, but we don't need the full-on research log. So the notebook is perfect for that kind of a simple research session.
Now, what happens when you're doing a more difficult research project and you have to move on from the research notebook? You need to start keeping an electronic research log, right?
That's exactly right.
So, when did you begin doing your electronic research log?
I did not start in earnest keeping the electronic research log until I was doing my accreditation 4th-generation project. Because that project, I knew I needed to turn in a research log for accreditation to be graded. And so that's when I really got down to business and decided I better start doing this research process correctly. So that's when I started.
So now, will you ever go back to doing research without an electronic research log?
Nope, I love my research log. In fact, I don't ever feel like I'm really doing research until I have my research log open and I'm starting to fill in the blanks of my columns. That's when it just feels like I get in the flow of my work, and that's when I feel like I'm really accomplishing things. I didn't realize how much more you feel like you've accomplished when you have filled in all the little boxes that we're going to talk about, all the fields for your search. It's amazing because for my client project, sometimes I will research for an hour and I will have kept track of everything in my research log, and I may not have found anything yet for that client project. But because I have all my searches completely documented, I feel like I've accomplished a lot. And I think that is the way it is with any research project, not only a client project, but our own research as well.
Right. Yes, I remember the first time that I did the Research Like a Pro study group with you, and I followed along all the assignments with everyone in the group, and I had to make a research log as well. And I had done some other research logs in the past, but this was the first time that I had really documented everything and created source citations. And it was a really interesting experience. And I actually found that I analyzed the source a little bit more as I had to record it. And so I gained more out of my searching sessions because I had to fill out my research log.
That's true. It is really interesting. And, sometimes you might feel like it's a little tedious and you'll think, oh, I don't want to search. I just want to look at the record. We get a little ahead of ourselves in our research and we just want to find the information. But if you make yourself slow down and be disciplined and take the time to fill in all of your research log, it just pays dividends. And so we have to keep ourselves in check when we want to go crazy with the searching, because as we all know, that doesn't always help us in the long run.
Right. Well, let's dive in a little deeper to what we do with our electronic research logs. So we create a separate one for each ancestor or family that we're doing a research project on. And I put the objective at the top. Then we kind of just cut and paste the website URL and links to the records. We put it in a spreadsheet format, but you can also do it in a Google document or a Word document and just add a table. Some people like to do tables more than they like spreadsheets, so that's fine too. But the great thing about a spreadsheet is that you can sort the columns, and usually you'll start by having your research log in order by the date that you searched. But then if you want to arrange it later into different order, like the order of the dates that you found that the event occurred that you found, then you can also kind of make it into a timeline in that way by sorting it. So a spreadsheet is a great way to go.
Yeah, I love my spreadsheet. I tried both. I tried using just a table format, and then I tried a spreadsheet. And once I learned the spreadsheet, that just became my format of choice. And I also really like with the spreadsheets that you can have multiple pages. So when I did my 4-generation report, I had a page for each generation, but was all within a spreadsheet. So really easily I could switch between generations, which was very helpful because sometimes I would find a record, for instance, a death certificate that would mention the parents. So I would want that to be in the first generation research log, and I also would want that in the second generation's research log. And it made it really easy to copy that entire line and then paste it into the other page of the spreadsheet. So I have also used that for client projects when I have multiple men that I'm researching. Sometimes I'm trying to sort out the correct ancestor from several of the same name. And I just barely did a research project like that where I had 2 men of a similar name and I had to try to decide if they were the same generation. I had to try to sort out all the records to figure out who was who. And so in the same spreadsheet, I had one page for one man and then another page for the other man. And it just helped to be able to have those 2 research logs kind of going simultaneously as I sorted out the various records. So I think we can be really creative in how we use our research logs and realize that different projects will warrant a different use or how we actually put the information in.
Yes, I'm excited for Roots Tech when Lisa Stokes is going to be teaching about Excel and how to use that better for her genealogy research. I know she is a very good Excel user for research logs.
Yeah, and she has a lot of fun ideas for how to use spreadsheets and research altogether. So I agree. I'm excited to get some new ideas for how to use our information. So let's talk a little bit about the website Research Ties, which is an online research log. And I have used this in the past and mainly for one purpose, and that is when I'm trying to get all of the surnames out of a particular record set. So for instance, I was researching the land records of Chambers County, Alabama, and I wanted all the instances that my Roysons were mentioned in the land records. And so with Research Ties, you can enter in a source once, and then you can make multiple entries very, very easily and very quickly. And then you can print reports from that and you can download it into an Excel spreadsheet. So it was just something that I wanted to try. And for me, I have settled on using my own format of an electronic research log. But I know there are other people that love the website I love the database research ties. So just wanted to do a little shout out to that. And if you're interested, you can go take a look. There's a free trial. There's a bit of a learning curve. So don't just get discouraged. If you really, really want to use it, you might need to keep trying. So we actually have a question from the Facebook group about research ties. It says, I've seen presentations about research ties, and I'm trying to decide if that is a better log system than what I would set up on a Google Sheet template. So I kind of have mixed feelings about this because I really wanted to use research ties for my accreditation project. But as I got into it, I realized I couldn't see the information like I wanted to. It just didn't allow me to look at everything like I can on my own research logs, which I think is why I've settled on using my own Google Sheet template for a research log. Nicole, what are your thoughts on that? You've tried research ties a little, haven't you?
Yes, I think I should try it again. Maybe now that I'm more experienced with research logs, I would be able to use it better. But I know that Jill Crandall created it for some of the projects that her students were doing at BYU, and where they have a big source and then they're trying to extract all of the data out of it. And so they use it for that. So I think it's really handy if you have one source and tons of things you want to extract out of it, then it might be the thing for you. But like you said, I really like using a spreadsheet, and I have more control over it. And then you don't have to learn how to use someone else's program. So that's why I've done what I do.
I agree with that. And I have thought a little bit about this. And I think that if you were doing a surname study, I know some people do that. They want to do all of the records for a certain surname in a county, and probably because they're trying to figure out the different families. And I think that would be a really excellent way to use research ties, because it enables you to enter the name of an individual, and then if you have no idea how these people are related, you could just enter all the information and then do a report for Samuel Smith and see what you found on him. So I can envision some uses for that, but I have not done a surname study. And so I think that would be one way that I think it would be a really great program to use. So my recommendation is, if you're really interested in it, to go try a free trial, do some of the tutorials that are online, and just try it. See if it's a fit for you. Jill's a good friend of mine, and she has an amazing way to research. So I've learned a lot from her, and I think that it would be great for some of our listeners. But if it's not for you, that's okay. We all have different brains. We all have different ways of looking at things and doing things.
Let's talk now about the paper research log. This is what has been traditionally used before computers came along. You have to write down everything that you search on a piece of paper, which can seem tedious, but you may need to do this if you're going to an archive or a repository where they don't have a computer, or you didn't bring anything to electronically record your searches, or maybe they don't allow anything other than paper and pencil in their archive. Or maybe your computer runs out of battery. So these are all kinds of times when you might need your paper research log. But you can download and print templates from the internet. There's one on the Family Search Wiki, or you can design your own to print and have several copies with you when you go to a repository. But you'll probably end up wanting to transfer everything that you have on your paper log to an electronic file, whether or not you scan it or type it out when you're done, because then you'll have it saved for the future and be able to refer to it from all of your devices. Any thoughts on the paper research log, Diana?
Well, the funny thing is that when I go up to the family history library to research, and when I'm working in microfilm, I really like to take notes on paper. I have tried taking my laptop, but because I'm using a computer to scroll through the microfilm, because they have that capability now, it's really distracting for me to then reach over and try to type something into my research log. So for me, I've discovered that I really prefer to take notes by hand and doing it in a paper research log. So, I think we all need to try and figure out what works for us. And then, of course, I come home and I transfer my notes into my computer, which doesn't take long. It's really easy. But I know other people that do take their laptops, to a repository and do all of their filling out of their research log on their laptop.
That makes sense.
It just depends on what works for you. So, I know we say that a lot, but it really is true that we are all different and we all have different preferences. So we teach the principles, and then those of you who are listening, you get to decide how you're going to do it, or try mix it up and try them all. So let's talk now about the elements of a research log. And the first thing you want to put on your research log is your objective. We talked a lot about objectives in our very first episode of this podcast. And I hope that if you are following along with this, that you've realized that having a focused objective helps you make great strides in your research. So you want to have your objective at the top of your research log. This is going to help you stay on track. Remember, this research log is helping you reach your objective. So that goes at the top. And then the columns that we use, I just decided the columns that I like based on other research logs and the things that work the best for me. So we're going to talk about the columns that I have devised. And like Nicole said earlier, you may want to put an extra column in here or there for what you would like to know. But the first column is always the date. And not only does this tell us if we might need to recheck a database going down the road, it also just helps us keep track of what day we're doing the research. And it helps me when I do this, when I'm working on a client project, because then I can kind of see, oh, okay, I worked on this project on this month of this year. It just helps me keep track of things. And then the next column that I like to use is the repository. And this is where we put the website, the library, the archive, or other physical location where we looked at the record. And this could also be our own files. So if we're trying to do a research log for an individual and we have some information that we maybe photocopied years ago and it's just in our files, then we can get that out and we can make a note that the repository was our own files, unless we remember where we got that information from. And then we would put that in. Maybe it was Family History Library or the Utah State Archives or whatever. So we want to know where we searched, and we could sort by that column if we were in a spreadsheet format, and we could sort to find all of the searches that we had done on Ancestry, or all the sources or all the searches we had done at the Family History Library, or on Family Search. So another reason why I love spreadsheets, because we can search for what we have done by sorting that column.
All right, next we're going to do a column for the URL, the call number, or the microfilm number. And if you're searching on a website, then you'll just copy and paste the URL there. But sometimes the URL can be really long, like in Ancestry. When you're looking at a census record on Ancestry, sometimes the URL is about 2 or 3 lines long. So we like to use bit.ly.com to shorten long links, or even tiny URL. And once you put the long link into bit.ly, then it gives you a short link, and then you can put that, copy and paste it into your research log. And if you're researching at a repository and they have a call number for the book that you're looking in, that would be what you place in that column, or the microfilm number if you're using microfilm. The next column is what you are searching for. So you can put first, you're searching for a marriage record of then the individuals that you're searching for. And if you do it in the same way every time, then you can sort for all of the searches that you made for marriage records, or all of the searches that you made for death records. And then you can see what you've already done for that question and then go forward. So it's a great way to sort, like we've been talking about, your spreadsheet. The next column is locality. And you put here the exact location that you're searching within. So you can put the city, the county, the state, or the country, and then you just put it in order from smallest to largest. And maybe sometimes you would be searching within a specific city, or maybe another search you would just be searching within the whole entire country. But when you list that, it helps you to see where you've looked already, and you might need to do a more broad search the next time, or a more specific search, and it can kind of help guide your search parameters a little bit.
Exactly. And I use that a lot, my locality columns and the type of records, just to see if I've thought about all the different record types, or if I've searched everything in a specific county that I should be searching for. So after that column, after the locality column, I have a column for the source citation. And this is where I create the source citation. This is where my source citation lives on my research log. And my big tip, if everybody can remember this, is to create your source citation the first time you look at the source. There's nothing more irritating than trying to be entering in some data into Family Search or your research report or your database, and you haven't done a source citation, and then you have to go back and look at the source again and try to figure out a source citation. So if you just do it the first time and get used to doing that format, then you'll see that your research really flows well. So just kind of a reminder from the previous podcast where we talked about source citations, just think as you're creating it simply of your 5 questions. Who created the source? What is the source? When was the source created, or when did the event occur? Where within the source is the information located, and where did you view the source? And, if you are struggling with these things, maybe you're going to want to print that on a little card and put it in front of your computer to help you remember. Or we've talked about doing a source citation template so that you can just copy and paste a basic census citation into your research log and then just fill in the different informational areas. So there's a lot of ways that source citations can be a little bit easier to create, but it takes practice. So don't get flustered that this is taking a long time and you just want to get searching. Just remember that the more you do things, the easier it will become, and you'll become better at it. So once you have your source citation created there, then is the fun part. This is where you get to fill in what you found, your results, your comments, your analysis. So a few tips for doing this. One is that you want to make sure you copy the names exactly as they are in the records. Now, we have a certain idea in our head, don't we, Nicole, about how our ancestors' names should be spelled. And so it can drive us crazy to see all the different ways people would spell them in the records. And so we tend to want to just spell it all the same because that looks nice and neat. But we have to remember that it's important to copy the names exactly as they are in the record, because that's how they were indexed. And it also will help us to understand how name variations, how different people would use the surname or spell the surname. So copy your names exactly. And then you want to abstract the information for lengthy documents. So if you have a deed, a land deed, you're just going to go through and get the important information out. That's what to make an abstract means. You'll take out the name of the individuals, the dates. You'll abstract out maybe the land description, the witnesses. So you will want to get the information out that's important and just put that in that comment section. Now, what if you have got a really big document? What if you have got a will that goes on for like 4 pages and then there's probate information afterwards? You can't get all of that into that little column or that little space on your research log. So I learned a great tip from a previous study group member. So what I do now is I transcribe that entire will, that estate file in a Google Doc. And then because Google Docs have links, I can just put my link to the transcription in the research log. So when I want to go look at the entire transcription, I've got the link right there. And that has been so helpful to be able to, manage some of those big files of information. So what do we do if we don't find anything? We had a marriage record that we were going to search, and we had this database, and our people are not in it. How do we record that? Well, in the column for results and comments, I like to use the capital letters NIL, nil, which stands for not in location. And I don't just put the initials. I actually detail what I was searching for. So maybe I would put something like NIL, not in location. I did a search for all of the variations of the Royston surname. So I would maybe put ROYST, the little star, which takes the place of any vowel N. And then that would tell me what kind of a search I had done in that database. Or maybe I would put search the index. This marriage was not in this book. So, I give myself some notes to kind of remember what that negative result was all about. And then your source citation also needs to reflect no results. So you would create a source citation giving the collection that you were looking in or the book you were looking in, and then you would just say negative search for the marriage of so-and-so. And then where would you use a citation like that with negative results? Well, you would use that in your research report, and it would show that you had done reasonably exhaustive research because you thought to look in that collection for a marriage record and it wasn't there. So that's how we can use negative results and a source citation reflecting that. Now, our final column of the research log is a document number column. And back in the day when they did paper research logs and people were filing all of their documents in their paper filing systems, some people would use the document number, to organize their paper copies. So now that we don't do that as much, what else can we use the document number file for or column for? Well, I use that at the end of a research project when I've done a research report. In my report, I will do a source citation and then I will say document 1. And then that signals the client to go look in the appendix of documents and look at document 1. And that also can correspond to my research log, which would also have document 1. So anyone who's doing accreditation, that is something that you'll need to do, is to have all of your document numbers match across your report, your documents, your research log. So for my own personal research, I don't need to use a document number. So that is one of those columns you may or may not use.
That's a good, interesting note. And I just had an idea that I might try doing, which is if I have all of my documents saved to Google Drive, I could add links there also. So I could have a link to the Ancestry website in the URL section, but then a link to my own document where I've saved that image in my Google Drive. That could take the place of my document number. I don't know. Maybe I can play around with that.
That is an interesting idea. I like that. Yeah, there's so many different things and we just have to think of them and then we can do them, right?
Right. Well, that was a very helpful explanation of how to do all of those last few columns. Thank you. It's interesting when you hear how other people do things, it really gives you ideas for your own process. So thank you. Now we have a few comments and mostly questions about research logs from the Research Like a Pro Facebook group. So let's go through some of these questions and try to answer them. What's the first one, Diana?
Okay, so the first question is, I never know what to do with one, meaning a research log, once the question has been answered. Do you attach them to the person in your genealogy program? There's so much good stuff on there. So what do you do with the research log? Well, here again, I love using Google Drive, Google Sheets, Google Docs. So my research logs are in Google Sheets, and I just save those in the file of my person that I'm researching. So, say I've been researching Thomas Beverly Royson. I have a research log for him that would go under his file on my Google Drive, along with all of the documents, the research reports I've written on him, any other information I have on him. I just save it in the files of the individual. So another idea that I have heard people doing, and I haven't done this, but I actually really love this idea, is to attach your research log to your online family tree, whether it's Family Search family tree or your Ancestry family tree. And then other people can see all the research you've done. I think that's a fabulous idea. I think maybe we should try that, Nicole.
Yeah, I've done that before with a client project where we didn't find the answer to her question, but she thought it would be a good idea to post it to the online profile for that ancestor so that other researchers who might want to continue with the research could just pick it up from where we left off.
Yeah, as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking that is probably one of the best places we could put it, because this is a collaborative effort, this whole genealogy thing, and we do work with other people. So I would love to see other people's research logs, where they have searched. So I think I'm going to start doing that. So another thing that you can do with your research log is to use it to write up your research, which we're going to talk about next episode. And I say this all the time, but your research is not doing anybody any good if it's just living in your own head. You've got to get it out of your head, make the connections, get things written down, and get them out there to share. So we don't want to leave behind our years of research, without having formulated it and put it somewhere. So we can just use our research log to write up our research. And then the research writing that we've done will go into our database in our notes, or we could upload it to our trees also.
Great. All right, here's another question from the Facebook group. I am a newbie and would suggest that you clarify the differences among research log, research plan, timeline, family group sheet, to-do list, etc. How do these tools fit together and how do they flow one to another? All right, this is a good question because we do make a lot of different kinds of spreadsheets and tables and documents as we're doing the whole project. And let's talk about each one. So for us, we like to do a research log, which is a spreadsheet with the date, what we searched, and what we found. And we do that in addition to a research plan. However, we do know some people who like to create their research plan directly in the research log. And the benefit of doing that is that you just kind of have one place for your plan and your log, and it simplifies things a little bit. But we do the research plan separate in the research project document, and that's where we list all the different sources we want to search, kind of like a brain dump. And then after we look at all those sources, we make a prioritized strategy. And that could be where you put that into the log and then update it later with the date and what you found. So it's just kind of personal preference. If you want to have a research plan that's separate from the research log. I know for accreditation, Diana had to create a research plan as a separate document from a research log. So that's another reason why you might want to do it if you're doing accreditation. But ultimately, it's just up to you if you want to have your research plan be a separate document from your research log or not. And then a to-do list, I'm glad you brought that up because a to-do list in my mind is just a bunch of ideas that you get while you're searching. And I like to keep track of that in my research project document where I'm kind of keeping track of ideas to search. So kind of in my research plan and all the different things that I could search and do before I make my prioritized strategy and a list of the top 5 sources that are most likely going to answer my research question. So I think of a to-do list more of the first step in the research plan and kind of a listing of ideas. And then at the end of your research report, you also have a future research suggestions, which we'll talk about next week. But this is a list of things to do next after this project is over. Kind of what can we do to further solve this problem if we didn't solve it? Or if we did solve it, what could we do next to further the research in this family? So I guess for me, there's 2 places that I put my to-do list, the research plan, and then at the end of the research report in the future research suggestions. And then a timeline. So we've talked about how you can kind of make your research log into a timeline if you sort by the column where you put the date, kind of the results, and you can see the events as a chronological list in that way. But we also make a timeline at the beginning of the genealogy research project, and we do that as we're analyzing the sources. So that is kind of a separate spreadsheet or table for us, although if you don't want to do it separately, I guess you could do it at the end. But it really does help you if you do it at the beginning of your project to make a timeline at the beginning. Then you can see what you already know and where the gaps are, and it helps you make your research plan. So, and then the last thing that this question asked about was a family group sheet. So what is a family group sheet then, if that's different from a research log? Well, a family group sheet is simply a listing of the family and the relationships within the family. So it has the parents at the top and then a list of all of the children and their names. And it's kind of a final product that you would print out when you're done researching a family and you want to give it to a client or you want to put it into your family book. And it's just kind of like a detail list of the family members. So Diana, what did you think about that? What are your comments.
Well, I think that it's so easy to get overwhelmed when you are a newbie because there are so many different things that you feel like you need to be doing, and it can seem overwhelming. But I think if we just kind of take one thing at a time, and this is how I do. Here's my workflow for a research project. Now, just envision, a client, they've given me an objective. And so how it fits together for me is that I do the timeline. I look at all the information the client gives me and I do the analysis on that. And then I make a plan. And then I work the plan, and that's my research log where I search everything and do source citations, keep track of things, and then I write the research report so the client knows what I've found. And then very lastly, I go and I enter in all the information into the family group sheet. That is where I go and correct relationships, or I add people that I've discovered. That's where I put the citations. And so that helps the client to have an updated database of the family and the information. So when I have kind of a workflow of how everything goes together and I have a specific place to do each of those, it really helps me to feel like I have completed an entire project. And we don't talk about family group sheets in our book, Research Like a Pro, a genealogist guide. But for any of you who are listening and have never really worked on that, a family group sheet, it's the same as your personal database. It's basically your family tree. And you keep it in a program on your own computer, and nobody can mess with it. It's like the family search family tree can be changed, but your own database is yours. And you could also do this on an ancestry tree that people couldn't change. So once you have information in a database like that of your family tree, then you can print off family group sheets. Back in the day, we had to create them by hand. They were printouts, and we had to go through and pencil or pen in all of the data, which you can imagine would be so tedious. And then when something changed, you'd have to go redo everything. So now that we have that electronic, it's great. So another question, Nicole, that we had was, what's the best electronic method for doing a research log? And I think that for me, it is the spreadsheet, the Google Sheets. And I like Google Sheets over Microsoft Excel because I do have them on all my devices. And there have been times when I've been at the Family History Library researching and I needed to reference a research log that I had maybe not brought a physical copy of, but it was available to me because it was on my phone, or I could log into my Google account on one of their computers. So I really see the value of a Google Sheet research log. If you're not don't really like using Sheets or Excel, then you could try a table. So, for me, it's really simple to do the Google Sheet. What about you, Nicole? What do you like best?
I prefer Google Sheets also, but I did think when you were talking that if people are used to Excel, you can still save and back up everything to your Google Drive. You can save your Excel file to your Google Drive, and then you can most likely view that on the computer at the Family History Library or on your phone as well.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
So here's another question. How detailed should we make the research logs? So my answer to that is as detailed as you want it to be. I think whatever it works best for you and what serves you. But like we said, you should make your source citation in there. And I think that's one of the most important things. And also put the link to the original record. If you have the link and the source citation, then you'll be able to find it again, which is one of the key reasons why you're making a log. So if that's as simple as you're making it, then that's pretty good. But then, if you have the columns for your results and you transcribe everything there, then it's a little bit more work, but it does contain more helpful information when you want to see what you have. So it's up to you how detailed you want them to be.
Yeah, I think that we need to remember the research log is our friend. This is helping us to make sense of our research. This is helping us to put everything together. And it's where we are seeing what we have found and we're making connections. So I think that It depends on how detailed your research project is. Is this a really detailed research project? Are you using a lot of indirect evidence? Are you trying to break a brick wall? Then you're going to want as much detail as you can get in that research log because you are going to need it to help you make those connections. If you're just doing something simple, maybe just use the research notebook like I talked about at the very beginning of the podcast because it's just easy stuff. So I think we need to fit our research log to our research project. And so, that would be my answer to that. Well, our final question, because it's probably time to be wrapping this episode up, is do we fill out a research log first and stick to it to be more organized? Can I tell you, I've never used one even though I've been searching for 40 years. And then this individual goes on to say, that's why I bought the book and I'm starting the class in September to get researching instead of wasting time searching. So I love that comment and that question. So absolutely, yes, we fill out the research log and we stick to it to be more organized. This is your tool. Everybody listening, remember this. This is your tool to start researching and not waste time searching. It may seem like you're having to slow down and you don't want to slow down to fill it out, but you're going to find with discipline, it becomes your best friend in trying to see what you have done. Remember what a research log purpose is? It's to see where you've been and what you've found. So, absolutely.
Yes. And I think she was kind of wondering, should I fill it out with my research plan first and then stick to it? And yes, that is a great strategy. I think especially if you have a prioritized strategy for your research plan and you put it straight into your log in that order, it will force you to do it in the right order, right?
Yeah, it can.
Stick to it.
Yeah, it puts order into our research, and we all like to feel like we're doing things in an orderly fashion. It makes us feel like we're just making more progress, and we are making more progress when we do it like this.
Yes, great. Well, that wraps up our episode on research logs. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we hope that you can go forward and make research logs that serve you and help you.
Yes, good luck, everybody. Have fun with research logs.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, familylocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.